living in Goulburn, working the breakfast shift at a radio station because I'd just gotten a job there, and blogging and attending events at the same time and trying to maintain that Instagram aesthetic and personality and keeping the content up. And I look back on it now, oh my gosh, I was crazy. And for the girlies out there, all the young boys out there that live in the country and they, want to come to the bustling city of Canberra and make their mark, if you're doing something that you're really passionate about, whether it is sport or blogging, fashion, journalism, anything, the passion will drive you, and I think you'll just find a way.
What do we need to stop to be like our ideal selves?
Oh, golly.
She's told 1,000 stories. Now it's time to hear hers. Journalist, mentor, creator, my beautiful friend Sammy lifts the curtain on the chaos, clarity, and hard-won truths behind the mic.
I learned that the person you think that is right for you, no matter how much you love them, isn't necessarily the right one for you. And they do put a contraceptive pill on that so that it's more accessible for young women or anyone who needs to go on the pill. And the pill is the one that's now on that. And that's so concerning. And unfortunately, I think it's going to have to take something drastic, because I called my mum on my lunch break. I went out for a quick walk and she said to me on the phone, "Oh, Sammy, darling, you're running." I said, "No, I'm literally like leisurely stroll." And she's like, "Your breathing sounds really haggard." And I was diagnosed with pulmonary emboli, which is, in a nutshell, clots in your lungs. And
Sammy, thank you for making the time. Thank you for your valuable time, your insights. I'm really, really looking forward to catching up, chatting, exploring the beautiful human I know and love so deeply a lot more.
Thank you, Avon. I'm really excited to be here, and I love spending time with beautiful humans like yourself.
Tell me about your blogging journey. That's how I first got to know you. Tell me about how you started Tailored Talk. What was the thinking behind it? But also, where did it take you?
Gosh, blog is such a strange word now, and I feel really old when I say, "Oh, I started out with a blog." I was working at my parents' cafe at the time in Goulburn, Rose's Cafe. My dad will kill me if I don't give that a shout out. And my best friend Loz and I were packing the drinks fridge. And I have always loved clothes since I was little. You look at photos of my sisters and I, and I'm one of 4 girls. And in every family photo, I have a brooch on, I have pearls. I've done my hair in a weird, sometimes not that lovely way, but like experimenting with clothes and fashion and expressing myself. And my friend Lauren and I were packing the drinks fridge, and I just said to her something along the lines of, "I just need a creative outlet. I don't feel like this is fulfilling me." I adored working with my mum and dad, and my mum and I were the A team in the kitchen, especially on a, brekkie rush on a Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, there was just that little bit of me that wanted to try something else. And I'd always been quite creative as a kid, always making things. And my beautiful friend Lauren said to me, "There's these ladies that I've seen online and they blog." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know what a blog was." I was like, gosh, and I'm never been too technologically advanced, not like yourself, Avon. I'm always, at the forefront of everything tech. But she said, they take these photos of their outfits, and Lord knows I have way too many clothes and have always had way too many clothes. And yeah, it kind of started there. So I looked into it. I came up with the name Tailored Talk because my beloved Pop, who passed before I was born, my mum's dad, he was a tailor over in England before they moved over to Australia. And it was just kind of an outlet at first. And then I guess that's how it started. And it was writing pieces on the blog, so on the website, about clothes, fashion, also sometimes about the struggles with body image. And as being one of 4 girls, we all had different shapes and sizes. We are all so different. and the struggles sometimes with clothes and finding clothes that fit you and knowing which clothes fit you and being confident enough to wear the clothes that you want to wear and love, even if they are a bit different to what everybody else is wearing. So yeah, that's how it all started. It was very slow at the beginning, but yeah, picked up eventually.
And what's one of those surprising things that happened on that journey? What's one of the breaks, one of the challenges, something you faced on that journey?
I guess as a young woman growing up in a smallish country town, I think Goulburn is technically a city, but I always think of it as a town, was just having the confidence to put myself out there. I'd always been a bit of a go-getter in school. In high school, I did everything, you name it. I did debating, public speaking, cross-country, netball. I loved it, and I loved being busy, and I always have. I've got quite a overthinking brain that ticks along a lot, and I always found that I'm best when I'm busy. And I think I really struggled with not feeling like a fraud. You know, I'm not built like a model. I never, my family, you look at all my beautiful sisters, I think we're all beautiful, but we're not that typical 6 foot, size 6, blonde hair, you know, Victoria's Secret, which is what we grew up thinking was a model. And so putting myself in clothes that I had curated myself, so I was putting out my own style and my opinion of what I thought was stylish, but also myself, like my body. And it was, yeah, when I look back now, I think that was pretty brave, that I didn't care what anybody else thought. I did at times, but I would push it down and think, no, I really enjoy this. And one day it's, you know, something good will come of it. And it did. I was really, really lucky and grateful for that.
For all of the other small town city girls listening in who want to start a blog or an online presence, there are moments I remember that we would spend time together at a truffle night or something like that. And you then had to drive all the way back to Goulburn. And I remember very recently also I had a chat going, do you still live in Goulburn?
No.
But I think it's important to also share, if you remember, some of those stories about the challenges of, you know, living where you did, but still having to come to the bustling metropolis called Canberra.
You laugh, but that was what it was for me.
Right? To come for events, but also to communicate with people that you may not be familiar communicating with. What were the challenges there?
Oh, gosh, it was just being organized. I had to be so organized. And when the blogging and the Instagram picked up, I had also enrolled in a journalism course at the University of Canberra. And there was a time there, about a period of a year, 18 months, where I was living in Goulburn, working the breakfast shift at a radio station because I'd just gotten a job there, and blogging and attending events at the same time and trying to maintain that Instagram aesthetic and personality and keeping the content up. And I look back on it now, oh my gosh, I was crazy. I don't know. Yeah, I guess being organized was the biggest challenge, and sleep, getting enough sleep. But I loved what I was doing and I was so passionate about what I was doing. And I find that anyone who is doing any job or hobby that they are interested in and love doing, and it gives them a sense of fulfillment, that will drive you anyway. Like at the end of the day, when I would, you know, everyone else would pop in their car and drive 15 minutes to home after an event in Canberra. I remember there was one opening of Saloon in Braddon, and a few of the girls were going to go out for drinks, but I had to do the brekkie shift the next day and fill in for someone. And I had to go and sleep at home in Goulburn. And one of my beautiful friends would have put me up in Canberra, but I was just, nope, I slept better at home. So yeah, I just hopped in the car and I was like, it was not that bad. Mum and Dad have a small property on the Sydney side of Goulburn, so it was always that kind of that last extra 15 minutes that really killed me some days. You go, oh my gosh, if only Mum and Dad lived in town. But I wouldn't change a thing. And for the girlies out there, all the young boys out there that live in the country and they, want to come to the bustling city of Canberra and make their mark, if you're doing something that you're really passionate about, whether it is sport or blogging, fashion, journalism, anything, the passion will drive you, and I think you'll just find a way.
And how do you, through that journey, build a voice? So you studied journalism. You looked into some of the nitty-gritty of it, some of the storytelling of it. How do you build an authentic voice that is you? Because it's still a crowded media space.
Gosh, yes. Yes, definitely. I think it sounds so lame and cheesy. I'll sound like a big cheese ball, but you just got to be yourself and be authentic, because there is only one you. And there are people out there who will relate to you, and they will appreciate your content and engage with your content as long as you continue to be authentic. And there's even little ways that I do it. I love to post a fit of the day, but I might pop in my little dog Valentino, on my hip, or do a little funny dance, because that's me. And I used to I had a couple of years there where I pared that back a bit, because I was like, oh, no one else is doing it. I was like, no, that's me. I need to push that out there again. And another thing is, even with my carousel posts on Instagram, and the OG followers will know this, and you might recognize it yourself, Afon, but I always do chins. Chins is my thing. I have a really round face. I don't know what the camera is, but like this. And I keep it real. I really try to keep it real. And that having a round face, which sounds so silly when I'm saying it out loud, but that's been one of my biggest insecurities. And so using that and using my chins, that was something that I used to do with my dad since I was little, and ever since I can remember. He'd be like, oh, like, we're so good at the chins. It was like my special talent, because I could just do so many of them because of my round face. And just sharing that, because it's funny and it's real, and we're all human, and we've all got funny little quirks like that. So yeah, just being you.
It's a very interesting take on the chins, and I love it. I've seen it so many times.
Thank you.
Social media amplifies perfection. How do you manage trying to either be yourself or a perfect version of yourself, and sometimes not beating yourself up about not being perfect?
Yeah, it's easier said than done. And I think, I don't know if, I do think it's common amongst women in general, and I'm sure men as well, that we all struggle now and again with body image. I think using humour, that's always something that I try to lend towards, in terms of what content I'm putting out there. Realize that it's not the be all and end all, and that if you do put out a post that maybe you don't look great in, or you don't think you look great in, that it's okay. But also, it's so funny the way we perceive ourselves. I will look at a picture. So even so at the moment, I'm lucky enough, I work with the Her Canberra team, and we're such a gaggle of girls. We will sit around, and if one of us is putting up a post, and we're not sure, we'll be like, which one in the carousel do I put first? And it's always so enlightening to me which photos of myself I look at and hate, whereas someone else will look at it and go, that's beautiful, So it's never the be all and end all. And my favorite photos of my friends and family are the candid, unedited, real photos. And I try to remember that when I put out content that isn't perfect.
And somebody who has a platform on Instagram, but also on digital media, what responsibility do you feel to other young people that follow you?
Gosh, I think I have a responsibility to keep it real, to let them know that it's not the be all and end all. In terms of young journalists or people who I know follow me, and sounds really arrogant, but I do know that I have for example, young interns that now follow me, that I've worked with and use me as a role model, and I'm lucky enough to be able to mentor them in some way, is I think I have a responsibility, especially as a woman in media, to pass on my advice and let them know what my mistakes were and how I learned from them. So if I can give them one little skerrick of something that helps them, whether it's a quote or a mantra or even just a way of doing something easier to save them time, and it means that in the long run I've done my bit to make it easier for women in media, I'll feel good about myself. Yeah.
Women in media have many challenges, and we'll chat about some of them. But sticking on the social media, what do you do with people that want to put forward an unsolicited comment, a DM that's not deserving of the time that they've taken to send it? What do you do with things like that? Because a lot of people starting off can get quite impacted by it.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I want to say some of us can be thick-skinned enough or experienced enough to look past it, make a bit of humor into that and go, oh, thanks, thank you, love the engagement, like, thank you for supporting me. But that's not always easy.
Yeah. I think it used to affect me a lot more than it does now. Now I'm lucky enough to be a bit more thick-skinned, and I think, unfortunately, that is just time and experience. But something that I took to heart early on in my radio career. So when I was a newsreader in the afternoons for Wilco Courts when they were on Mix 106.3, I remember something stuck in my head. Wilco had received a negative comment. Someone had called up the radio station and just annihilated him it was very unreasonable. Didn't make any sense to me. And I remember it vividly. We're standing opposite each other. He was anchoring the desk, picked up the phone, had this very angry man yell at him, say some quite homosexual comments, put the phone down, and he wasn't fazed. And I remember looking at him and being like, I would be in the fetal position in the corner, or at least a bit shaken. And he probably was a little bit, now that I know him really, really well. But I remember him saying, I must be making waves or making an impact or getting my message out there because I'm getting the hate comments. He said to me, that's a sign that my reach is further, and that's a good thing. And so in some ways I kind of think, well, you know what? If they have the time and they want to put in the effort to message me and like compose a long message, which I've had in the past, especially in the early days when you're not really sure what you're doing and you might put something out there that maybe you didn't think through properly, and also people can interpret things so many different ways. We're all so different. I just often think, I feel really sorry for you that that's how you respond to that, instead of moving on with your day. So I don't spare them a thought anymore, and neither should anybody else.
The prize of success.
Yeah, thank you.
The prize of success comes to us in many different ways, right? And it's all a learning experience. For a woman in journalism, or for somebody who's aspiring to be in your position, what are some of those steps you'd need to take, Sammy, to get there?
Don't be afraid to reach out to potential mentors. I think that is something that I was lucky enough, I just fell into it when I was at the radio station and even in my Instagram network. People like yourself, Avon, who gave me the time of day when I was establishing myself and getting my name out there and my personality out there at the radio station. I was lucky enough to work with a brilliant journalist. Her name's Renee Bagatko, and was just so generous with her time. And sometimes in that industry, people aren't, because it's very egotistical when you think about it. There's lots of egos in this very little building. And I just think, when I think about it now, I hit the jackpot. Wilco Courts were so generous with their time and teaching me. And looking back now, I kind of feel sorry for them because there was a few days there and they just got stuck with the rookie journo. And Wilco was so calm and so patient, and so was Courts, and they had a brilliant way of giving me feedback and not making me feel guilty. because I'm the kind of personality that I will leave a room after you've said something and I will overthink it, especially with my job when I was so eager to please. And I was very, very lucky to have mentors. Even Amanda Whitley from Her Canberra, I met her very early on in my blogging career, and I always looked up to her, and I know I could always reach out to her if I needed anything or needed some guidance. Reach out to a mentor. I think that is very, very helpful, and that there is no dumb questions, whether that means it's directed towards your mentor or within the workplace. At the end of the day, everybody wants the best result for you as a team, and you're usually working in these team environments. Don't be afraid to ask. Go out there and put yourself out there. And the worst thing is they say no. You know, if you're asking for an opportunity or something, and that's how I got my first job at the radio station. We had to do an internship in my second year of uni, early on in my second year of uni, and everybody else was sending off emails. And not that that's fine, but I printed out my resumes and I went and knocked on doors. And I remember rocking up to the station in the paddock out in Crace, and they said, look, we don't have an internship going, but we have a job. And it was the hit squad, which wasn't a journo job, but it was a foot in the door, and I was happy with anything. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. So mentoring and put yourself out there.
What do I need to know about your younger years or your formative years to understand where you get the courage to do that? The courage to put yourself out there, the courage to look for opportunity, the courage to not sit back and get upset about rejection, the drive to move forward. What do I need to understand about those formative years?
I think I definitely still get worried about rejection, even now, writing a story for Her Canberra, and I send it to the editorial team. I think, oh my gosh, I hope they don't rip it apart. I think that is normal. But in terms of who I am as a person, I think a lot of that is my beautiful family. I'm very, very lucky. I'm very close with my parents and my sisters. I said earlier, I'm one of 4 girls, and my mum and dad, they're just incredible. My dad, from a young age, with us, he was so positive in terms of what we could do. And I think he noticed early on, especially growing up in a country town, not so much myself, but my older sister and my younger sisters were always very competitive in sports. And there were so many boundaries that they would face. You know, you get to a certain level and people ask why they're doing it anymore, or you get that level that you get to isn't actually there for girls because the sport didn't even exist for girls. I get a bit emotional now. I've got friends that have young girls and they have all girls soccer teams. And that, to me, I get so emotional about that. Looking at the NRLW and the Raiders having their female team that are playing on the national and sometimes international stage, I think that is so brilliant. And I think I'm lucky enough that there was no boundaries for me because mum and dad never made it seem like there was one. They were willing to support us, whatever we decided to do. And they were just also brilliant role models. They started a business. It's a successful business. They instilled on us all a really great work ethic. And at the time, I remember growing up, especially in my teenage years, I would go and play 3 games of netball on the weekend so that I didn't have to work at the cafe on a Saturday for as long. So I'd do the morning and then I'd escape down to, it was East Grove in Goulburn where we would play the netball. And I would coach one of the junior teams and I would play a few games and then I'd come back and I'd help clean up. And it was also part of the reason why I think I loved running so much when I was in school, cross country, because my training just happened to be in the afternoons when cleanup of the cafe was happening, and my sisters would help out a lot with that. But yeah, mum and dad, in everything that they do, they give 100% or more. And my mum, if any listeners have seen how much I brag about her on social media, she's turning 70 this year and she's doing triathlons the same distances that my friends and people younger than me are doing that I could not do myself. She's just incredible, and she still manages to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning to bake for their cafe in Goulburn, and it's that work ethic that both of my parents have that have instilled in me that no matter what you do and what you set your mind to, if you are willing to put the time in, you can do it. Sure, it might be hard, and there might be very emotional moments, as there is with anything that you're passionate about. But at the end of the day, if you're willing to put the time behind it and work your butt off, then go for it. Yeah.
The Roses Cafe has played a large part in your life. But the Roses Cafe is a cafe. It's the people that make it happen. My mom recently turned 70, and I look at her and go, how do you have the energy? How do you have the passion to do what you do? What are the lessons you've learned from your parents that you wish you can do when you're 70?
Oh, gosh, there's so many things that I look at both my parents and go, gosh, I hope I'm like that when I'm 70. My dad is fearless. His hobby, he will say it's not a hobby. It's his way of life. He calls himself a race car driver. He is technically, I guess. He has a few old cars. I shouldn't say a few. He's got a shed, and a lot of his mates keep their cars in there. But he has an old 1965 Ford Mustang that he races with the Historic Touring Cars Association. I've missed a letter in there. But he goes out every couple of months and races this huge car with a huge engine and just goes for it and doesn't care what anybody else thinks. There's so many people that are saying, oh, you're getting a bit old. He's 72 and he will be doing it for as long as he can because he loves it and he just loves being around it. And he takes the time to invest in the things that he enjoys. And I hope I remember to do that as well when I'm that age. Moving on to Mama Carol. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. She's just a Wonder Woman. I think one of the things that I hope I am like when I am that age is she's so generous. And I really hope that she's instilled enough of that in me that I reflect that not just now, but throughout my life, no matter what phase of life I'm in. She's so generous, not just with us as a family, but in the community. On Christmas Day, the last few years, we've done the Goulburn Park Run. And I run with Mum because my other sisters are too fast. They're too clever and talented and fit. And so I hang back with beautiful Mum. And it's still a fast pace, like for me. And it is like running with the Queen. Everyone stops or waves or Carol this and Carol that. And I don't know any of these people. And I'm from Goulburn. And she tells me, it was quite beautiful. There was one fellow who had lost his pet dog, and she pointed him out and said, I did drop him off a hamper basket, and his dog was beautiful. And she remembers things, and she makes a point to make people feel special. And there's no tactic or intent behind it. It's just because that gives her joy and brings her joy. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And she does that through the cafe. She actually has a wall of Polaroid photos so that if someone new comes in and she can't remember their name, and she would never tell, this might be sharing industry secrets, sorry, Carol, but she will take a Polaroid photo of them or find a photo of them or even write down a very intense description, which is very funny to read sometimes, and pop their names there and their story and how she remembers them. Like there's random things like Bob got a hip replacement 3 years ago, comes in with walking stick, or I don't know, Sally, she lived down the coast and has just moved to Goulburn for this, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Like the detail is there's so much detail there and it's so beautiful and so admirable. And I hope that I can leave just even a tiny bit of that legacy that she has already built there and that my parents as a team have built there because, yeah, it's the community behind it that's the really beautiful thing about the cafe, like you said. Yeah.
our lives get busy. We make our lives busy trying to achieve things because we want to start lots of things. We want to consolidate the things we are doing. What do we need to stop to be like our ideal selves?
Oh, golly. I think you need an outlet, something that you enjoy. Running is that for me and always has been. I think exercise, if you are able to exercise, is such a blessing. I feel so much better when I move my body, whether it is just a walk or a slow jog around the block. And I think when you aren't able to do that, you realize just how incredible an impact it has. And for me, running is, I wouldn't call it running. Some days it's more of a shuffle, a slow jog. But it's my self-care. And that's the time when I can let my mind wander and, get it right into the corners of my brain, those little niggles that might have been, going around and around that week or that month, who knows. But I think to be our ideal selves, we do need to take the time to find what we love and what we enjoy away from work. And something that struck me, I can't remember who said it years ago, but going back to your inner child and what you love to do as a kid. I always loved to run and I was very active as a child. But also, and this might sound really lame, but for me, I always loved dressing up and I loved clothes. I loved the feel of clothes and accessories and textures. So if I'm really not feeling great or I'm not feeling like my ideal self, I put on some music. I love a bit of pop, Britney Spears, Lady Gaga, Ariana, all the queens. And I'll just raid my wardrobe and find clothes that bring me beautiful memories or that I love the feel of them, and make me feel good. And my mum has a photo somewhere in our home, my childhood home in Goulburn, of me sitting at my desk in my childhood bedroom. I asked them for years and I begged. They eventually allowed me to paint one of my walls hot pink. I don't know if you remember when the feature walls were a big thing, and mine was hot, bright pink. And I had a hot, bright pink wall, and there's me sitting at my little desk, and I have emerald green, like evening gloves on, a dressing gown, because the gloves were obviously giving me joy, and a little pair of kitten heels. And I just remember now, whenever I think of I got to go back to my inner child to become my ideal self and make myself feel good, that every now and again I will be walking around with my dressing gown on in my little apartment, but with a pair of really cute sparkly heels on, because that's what makes me feel good. Yeah.
That's the most fashionable self-care routine I've ever heard of.
It's not all the time, I promise.
But there's so much you can take from that, because that is a circuit breaker. That takes you back to a place where you were happy, where you had good memories of. I think that's really, really important. How does a young person like you define love?
Gosh. When I think of love, I think of my family and my mum and dad and my beautiful partner, and the common thread amongst all of those things, my friends, my family, there's no conditions there. And not that should ever be taken advantage of, but no matter what I've gone through, they're always there and there's no question of it. I think in terms of romantic love, I've definitely been in relationships in the past where I felt there was conditions on that. And I'm a stressful, overthinking person anyway. I do tend to get anxious. That's just who I am as a person. But looking back, there were definitely relationships that I thought were right for me, but I didn't feel calm when I was in that relationship. And it wasn't easy. Not that you shouldn't invest time into building a relationship and maintaining a relationship, whether it's romantic or a friendship. I think it's very important to do that. But it should be easy. Yeah, and you shouldn't ever feel like you cannot be your true self. I think when I think of love and my parents, they are both so supportive of each other. And it's a story I tell everybody. My mum and dad met, I think my mum was 35 and my dad was 37. They were engaged after 3 weeks and they got married. And I also blame them sometimes. I just think that's why I had such high standards. It's like, why aren't I engaged and married yet? Because they did it after 3 weeks. But looking at them and the beautiful life that they've built, it's because of the love that they have for each other. And no matter what life threw at them, they unconditionally worked through it together. And I apply that same principle to my love for my beautiful friends. I have so many beautiful friends, and I'm so grateful and lucky for that, that I've found my tribe and I have all these beautiful people in it. So yeah, love for me is such a hard question, Afam, is knowing that you have that support network and also feeling joy that you are a part of someone else's support and that being in their life brings them joy as much as it brings you joy. Yeah.
You've spoken openly, candidly about heartbreak. What have you learned from heartbreak?
I learned that the person you think that is right for you, no matter how much you love them, isn't necessarily the right one for you. And that a person shouldn't have to lose you to realize how great you are. And I learned that the hard way, but it's a lesson that I'm very grateful that I learned because it meant that I'm now in a relationship with a man that I adore and does make me feel calm and safe. And yeah, and it's no fault. Like thinking about past relationships, it's no fault of the other person. Like we all do things that we look back in relationships and you go, gosh, why did I do that? What was I thinking? Or, I'm sure even looking back at high school boyfriends, I'm like, oh my God, why was I with them? That was never going to work. But, in the moment you love them, and I remember feeling like that even in year 7. God, it sounds so silly now that I'm saying it out loud. But like I loved my year 7 boyfriend. And at the time, that's what it felt like. But yeah, I think remembering that it's okay if something is not just serving you, whether it's a relationship, anything in life, that it's okay to walk away. And it will get better. I think that's the hardest thing. If there is anyone out there at the moment and they are going through heartbreak, because, yeah, Lord knows that I was in the depths of it a couple of years ago and I just did not like myself. I was like, no one's ever going to love me again. What am I doing? This is not where I thought I would be in life in terms of my romantic relationships. And I think, especially as women, you have a bit of a ticking time bomb because you're like children, family, all of these things. And so many times I would go on bad Tinder or Hinge dates. I remember calling around, I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I find my person? And eventually it did happen, but it only happened when I let my guard down and I didn't have a specific goal in mind. It was just, it was very easy. We were friends. And that's another thing, actually, I have to give Carol credit for because she set us up. But, yeah, I hope anyone out there who is going through a breakup or they've been through a breakup or maybe they haven't been through a breakup and they're single and they don't want to be single and they're struggling with maybe feeling a bit lonely or like they're always the third wheel, it gets better. And there is so much fun and value in enjoying the years that you are single. Because again, that's when I met my new beautiful partner, is when I was actually really enjoying being single. And I'd gotten to the point I was like, I'll be okay if I don't meet anybody, because you should be with someone who adds value to your life, not just because it suits.
It's very traditional for mum to set you up with someone.
I She'll love that we're saying this.
But it's a huge swing from what I heard, Tinder and Hinge. Is Tinder and Hinge a modern dating strategy, or is it, I'm not feeling good, and I know there is the pressure of a ticking clock? Is it a pressure-based response, or is it a modern dating strategy?
Both. I would say both. I definitely would go through these waves where you would feel awful about yourself, and if you need a really quick confidence boost, I would download Tinder or Hinge and put up my prettiest photos, and the confidence boost that you get of guys liking, because I am straight, of guys liking my profile and, you know, giving me compliments like, oh, you know, there is people out there. And then the next week I would delete them because it was just so monotonous and it felt like a second job, you know, which I was very lucky that people were liking my profile. And it was very well curated, if I do say so myself. But in terms of I think it is also, the confidence boost, but also the modern dating strategy. I have friends that met on Tinder and they are now married and have beautiful families. And we are also busy. I think sometimes you have to kind of go out of your way to find your person. Sometimes I do think you have to make an effort. I had these conversations with friends where they talk about how they want to find someone and they consciously want to find their person. And I have a beautiful friend, Emily, and we were kind of on a similar journey. We got to a point where we were both single and we both want babies, and we're like, we're going to have a commune. We'll buy a house down the coast, we'll have a veggie patch, we will have chickens, and we will get a sperm donor and we will have a commune, and we'll bring our mums down. Our mums are very similar, Carol and Kathy, like two peas in a pod. And yeah, that will be us. And if a man comes along, great, because she's also straight. So that is still an option. She is now engaged with a beautiful little bub of her own. But she's always said the option is always there. But I do think, the Hinge and Tinder, it is a means to an end in some ways of helping people put themselves out there, and going out and dating, and even just the practice of dating. It's such an effort. Oh my gosh, like dolling yourself up. The social, if you're an introvert like myself, I know I probably don't seem like an introvert, but I think at my heart I am. Going out there and meeting someone is just so daunting. And I think it takes the fact that you can message someone over an app and have a little think about it, or, you know, you don't have to reply straight away, takes the pressure off a little bit. So when you do go out to meet someone, it's not as daunting and you kind of know what they look like. So hopefully they're not catfishing you. That has happened to me actually a couple of times. My mum loves to tell a story about how I rocked up to a date and he'd obviously used lots of filters on his Tinder profile, and I turned up and he had no front teeth. Yeah. And I'm like, looking back now, I was like, I should have kind of caught that the over-edited photos were a little too smooth. But, you know, we live and we learn, and it's a really great story for mum to tell to make her customers laugh at the cafe.
And I learned that you like front teeth.
Yes, I do.
The pressures of dating, the pressures of heartbreak also when you're trying to build a career. I've known you for close to a decade. And you tell me that you've been through a couple of difficult years. Like everyone goes through difficult years. But I haven't seen that. I have not had the opportunity to see that, to feel that, and that doesn't come through in your communication. You've got to pick yourself up because sometimes you're managing a social presence. Sometimes you are doing curated content for a brand, an organization. I can't always have you tucking into your Ben and Jerry's and sulking a bit. How do you manage that persona?
I think I have to schedule time for myself to hibernate. I need to recharge. Like I said, with running is an outlet, but I'm also the kind of person, it's a blessing and a curse, the work ethic that my beautiful mother has handed down to me. I will push myself to breaking point. And I think I'm starting to learn just the past year or so that you don't have to do that to be successful, and you can still look after yourself and have a lifestyle and be great at work. And especially if you're in a workplace that supports you to do that and it supports your lifestyle as well as your persona at work and your job at work. But yeah, I definitely have pushed myself to breaking point multiple times. And what I've learned the past few years is sometimes I need to schedule time for myself, whether it is just looking in the calendar and being like, okay, I've got heaps of things on that weekend. Let's try and put them all on the Saturday, because in my head, I'll get them all done, bang, bang, bang. And then on the Sunday, I don't have to speak to anybody apart from my dog and my partner and maybe a phone call from mum or a sister. Like I think that's how I manage it and deal with it. That's probably why you haven't seen it. I heard about it because I literally just go into sloth mode. I will save episodes of my favorite housewives to watch on that day. My friend Emma McDonald will kill me for saying this, but the Kardashians, I love the Kardashians. Anything that is sugar for my brain and means that I can just switch off and zone out, particularly when I was working in a newsroom at a radio station every day, 5 days a week, and sometimes 7 days a week, or during, dare I say it, the pandemic. You know, there was 2 weeks there where I was in that station every single day, and I would have to schedule even just an hour wherever I could just to curl up in my big blankie, my comfy Woolies pajamas, and let my brain be mush and recuperate. I think you've got to, for anyone who is trying to manage, you know, whether they're very, very busy in any aspect of their life. And granted, I do not have children, so I know it is easier said than done to, you know, schedule time for yourself and all that kind of thing. But I think it's, for me at least, within myself, I know it's really necessary to do that, to be able to maintain that public persona, and also make me realize how lucky I am to do the work that I do, because I really enjoy it and I really love it. It's just that often very many elements of my job are extroverted, and the introvert in me is screaming like, when do we get to hibernate and stay away for a little bit? And for years, now that I look back on it, that has always been my coping mechanism. But I didn't take the time to schedule it, so it would happen, or it would be forced, because I would get to a point where I would need it instead of making the time to do it before I get to that breaking point, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That coping mechanism seems more achievable than what I've heard. So I've heard that you've got to do the cold plunge, and then some affirmations in the mirror, and then you do some mindfulness. Then you sit down for some yoga, and then you feel good. And that seems really difficult to do, because cold plunge is not my thing.
No, neither.
How did you come up with something that sits so well with you? Was it a thoughtful process, or is it something that just happened, you felt good and you built on it?
I think it was built over a while, kind of recognizing and self-reflecting on with health professionals. So whether it was with my doctor or a psychologist, a therapist, or even just with my mum, Carol, like we chat on the phone every day. And she's always said to me, you were always a good sleeper. Like mum, when I was little, mum would find me in bookshelves or in the pantry, like I would just be curled up. And that was the way that I would just literally hide from the world and recharge. And instead of being ashamed of that, because I think a part of me, especially when I started in journalism, they were like, you know, it's all about the hustle and the grind. And it's almost like you take pride in that you've burnt out. And I finally started to realize that's not so cool when it makes you feel terrible and impacts all other aspects of your life that aren't work. And so I do think it was a process over a few years where I started to recognize I do need that time. I need space to make myself feel like me again and do really little things like, be a sloth or a vegetable for a day, or even just a couple of hours on a Sunday night with my little dog on my lap and recharge.
We're going to dive into health and well-being. Recently, you shared an article where you had a health scare with a contraceptive pill. So I did what I do best, and I sent you a message and go, hey, my beautiful friend, are you okay? But I also called my sister, who is a healthcare professional, and I said, hey, my beautiful friend, she had this challenge. And I went, oh, my sister's a healthcare professional. She's like, yeah. That is an unfortunate side effect. It's printed on the side of the box. And I'm going, who's reading the side of the box?
Thank you.
Who's reading the side of the box? Who knows anything? But also I get a lot from healthcare professionals like my sister and others who will tell me, what medication are you taking? Do you know what's in them? Do you know the name of it? No, I don't. I just trusted my doctor who gave me some medication, who I'm assuming when the card finishes, I am better. Tell me about your experience, and we'll delve a little into what it taught you.
So I was diagnosed with, I hope I'm saying this correctly, pulmonary emboli, which is, in a nutshell, clots in your lungs. And it all happened on a Tuesday night last October. I'd felt in the lead up quite sore, and I love to run. I tried to go for a run a few times in the days leading up and really struggled to even make it a kilometre and found myself out of breath. And I also suffer from asthma. I have since I was a kid, and I was having trouble breathing, and I thought, oh, it's probably just my asthma. And you kind of gaslight yourself a little bit thinking, oh, it's not that serious, And I think as Australians, we often it'll be right. It'll be fun. It'll sort itself out. And I hope it sorts itself out. But I called my mum on my lunch break. I went out for a quick walk. There was something that I had to check in with her about. And I was walking. And on previous lunch breaks, every now and again, I've had enough time where I've been able to go for a run. And she said to me on the phone, she said, oh, Sammy, darling, you're running. I said, no, I'm literally leisurely stroll. And she's like, your breathing sounds really haggard and you're really struggling. She said, has your asthma flared up? And I said, oh, I don't know. It hasn't flared up for a while. I think I'm okay. And she said, Sammy, are you sure? And I mentioned to her the chest pains, and it had felt like I'd done a really big HIIT workout. And I've never been into strength training. I should do more. I know I should do more, but I love cardio. I love to run. I love to go for a walk. I like getting outside. And it was like I was stiff all across my chest, my back as well, my lower back. Basically, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but where your lungs are, this area. And I remember sitting at my desk in the Her Canberra office, and I'd breathe in and it would hurt, and it started to hurt when I would breathe. And I gave myself to the end of the day, 5:30 clock off. So if it's still happening and I'm having trouble breathing, I'll just take myself to the hospital. So I went into emergency. The nurses were brilliant. And I even said when I got to the desk, I said, look, I don't know if I'm overthinking this. So I do suffer from asthma, but I'm having trouble breathing. They got me into triage straight away, and then they took me straight through to the emergency department and admitted me. And one of the nurses knew straight away. She had an inkling. So what pill are you on? So I was on the Yasmin pill, had been for about 6 or 7 years, and you shouldn't be on that one for more than 18 months to 2 years. And she said, and she had a beautiful Irish accent. She was so lovely. And she said, I think it's one of 3 things. She said, you might be pregnant, you might have pneumonia, or she said, I think this is the more likely one. I think you might have clots in your lungs. And she was like, I don't mean to shock you, but we've had so many young women your age. She said young millennials, so I'm 31, kind of in that 28 to 35 age group, who have come in. And because the Yasmin pill for anyone that is listening who is a young woman or is a woman around my age, the Yasmin pill was the one you wanted because it helped your skin, so it dried out your skin, and I suffered with acne on and off throughout my whole life, and that's the one I was put on to kind of help cure that. That's kind of like now that I think about it, it's a bit of a Band-Aid. But when I did get the official diagnosis that night, I was in shock, and I was in shock at first, and then the days following I was really angry because I eat well, I take care of my weight, I try to have veggies, fruit every day, I exercise every day without fail. Like, it's not necessarily always intense exercise like a run, but I always go for a walk. I've got a little dog. And he gets his steps in too. We do together. And I was angry that this had happened to me. I was like, I do everything. You know, I check which vitamins I should be having and make sure that even in terms of my female health, like that all my bits and bobs are working properly and have regular checkups there just to make sure that everything's in check. But yeah, I was really, really angry. And unfortunately, if I had had a health professional like your sister, I don't think that would have happened. I think because we do get so busy, often I would just book into a doctor to get a script renewed. And I think we all do this, you know, whether it was with my asthma puffer, my Ventolin, or it was with the contraceptive pill or whatever. And I would just book in. And the last few times, and I can say hand on heart, I wasn't asked how long I'd been on that pill for. And granted, I take full responsibility. I should have read the box. And that's on me, you know, my culpa. But like you said, who's reading the box or the fine print? And I got really upset last week or the week before whenever they announced the new pharmaceutical benefit scheme, the next round that we're going to be put on that. I don't fully know how it works, so I apologize if I've got some of this wrong, but they do put a contraceptive pill on that so that it's more accessible for young women or anyone who needs to go on the pill. And the Yasmin pill is the one that's now on that. And that's so concerning. And unfortunately, I think it's going to have to take something drastic because there are so many of us after sharing my story. And I was in two minds about sharing my story. It's personal and it was a very emotional time. I wasn't sure if I would be able to have kids. It means moving down the road, my health, there is ramifications for me in perimenopause, menopause, moving into old age. There is a number of medications that my mum has taken through that process of menopause that will be off limits for me because it will mean that I will clot. If I am ever lucky enough to have a child of my own and be pregnant, there is ramifications for me there. I'll need to be really careful. I'll need to take certain injections every day, which I will happily take if it means that I will get to have a baby and start a family of my own. But yeah, it was just a lot. And I do, there was lots of other common stories that was so similar to mine that came out of the woodwork. Again, sounds like the Carol podcast, but my mum would told lots of people in the cafe, and so many people reached out, even just in Goulburn. And through my social media in Canberra, nationally, I had a few international messages of friends that, you know, had moved to London or were over in the States, and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm on this pill and I haven't had to check it. And I've been feeling like this. And when I say feeling like this, I think I should go back to the beginning and when I was diagnosed. In the months leading up to that, I was so lethargic. And I think I don't sound arrogant in saying that I am a go-getter. I'm very active. Sure, I need to hibernate and be a vegetable for a couple of hours on the weekend, but I'm always on my feet, and that's when I'm at my best. And I remember saying to my sisters on the phone, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I didn't know if it was maybe I was depressed or I felt tired all the time. all the time. I could not have enough sleep. And I've done breakfast radio, so I know that I don't need as much sleep as everybody, thinks you do. I know my limits. It was quite a tumultuous time.
That's wonderful perspective that tells all of us that sometimes we need to take the time to understand ourselves, but understand what we are taking. A lot of the time, I think blind trust has its limits and extent.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a new problem. I think it's just a human problem or a problem of convenience that we have decided that the money we've invested in said professional, whoever they may be, is valuable. But I think our lives are more valuable.
Agreed.
So I think there is a point in time that we need to reset. We need to say, okay, what am I taking? Why am I taking it? But also find people like you who have the courage to share, because while you have shared and you've been through what you've been through and you've got to still work through a few things, you've also enlightened that challenge to a lot of other people who may not know otherwise. So thank you for being bold. Thank you for sharing. What did that experience show you about the Canberra health system?
The immediate health professionals that I interacted with at the hospital, I cannot fault them. They were brilliant. Nurses should be paid so much more. And the doctors in ED, everyone that I interacted with that evening, oh my goodness, it was incredible. They were so calm. They made me feel so safe, and they didn't make me feel like I was overthinking it. Nothing was silly. And I also think when it comes to women's health, I have so many friends that have recently been diagnosed with PCOS, and it's because they kind of gaslit themselves into thinking that they would be feeling these things about their body but not trust their gut enough to mention it or to push a doctor if the doctor was like, oh no, I don't think you've had that, or push for more testing. So I think that's important in any health system that you're in. In terms of the Canberra health system, the hospital that I went to, I cannot fault. I thought the emergency department, I remember sitting there, and I think it's ECG, I don't know, the thing where they put the little electrodes on you and they check you, and I'm sitting there and you're so vulnerable, you've got your top off and there's strangers walking past a meter away, and it's so awkward. And you got to laugh, because what do? You laugh or you cry. And the nurses were just divine. And whatever they are doing to train those, and I only interacted with ladies. There was a few wardsmen that wheeled me around when I had to go and get my x-rays and everything, and they were great as well. I guess my main takeaway from that was they're brilliant and they deserve so much more. Yeah, pay them more, please.
Challenges in life don't stop, but with challenges comes opportunity also all the time. So let's bring on more challenges, right? Speaking of challenges, you spoke about acne. I have family who have lots of challenges with skin based things. Like I've got eczema, my child has eczema. My cousin, beautiful soul, has vitiligo on her face, on her hands, and she's been bold enough to go, I'm going to be a model. That's what I want to do. But that courage wasn't easy. I know little bits of her story and what she had to go through and how she had to build up lots of mental resilience, working at Bunnings and other places. How has the journey with acne been for you?
Firstly, that sounds brilliant, and I can't wait to follow her journey with you. You'll have to put me in touch with her. My journey with acne. From a young age, my puberty came in early. So to speak frankly, I was one of the first girls in my year at primary school that had a bra. And I remember even that was awkward. And then the pimples followed soon after that. I remember being in year 7 and everyone else still had quite nice, beautiful, youthful skin. My skin was youthful, it was just pimply. And it wasn't bad in terms of, I would definitely see other kids around that had it worse than I did, particularly as I moved through high school. I think it got really, really bad after my mid-20s a few years ago, and it was when I was really stressed or I'd been through a really stressful breakup and the hormones didn't know what they were doing, and I lost a heap of weight, not because I was exercising more, just because I was so stressed. My body was just in hyper mode, and it was, I was just wired all the time, and my skin, like I couldn't put a pin between the pimples. It was a bit nuts. And for someone that was working in media, granted I was very lucky that I was in radio and not television, because Lord knows what I would have done then. But even then, like, there was an element to radio, and in the studios they have the videos on you and the bright lights because it's all about socials now. And I remember when that all came in and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And turn up and wear a big hat while I've, over my news prompter to hide my face. And the lowest point was I'd gone to a dermatologist who was brilliant and she was very helpful, and she put me on Roaccutane, which dries out your skin, and I'm slowly being weaned off that now, which is very exciting. But before that, she said, look, you might get a reaction. So you still have the pimples, and as it's like getting rid of the pimples as your skin renews so quickly, you might have a reaction. And my luck, I had the biggest reaction. I remember I sent photos to my mum. I wish I could show you. I can send them to you. I looked like, those puppies that you see on Facebook that have swallowed a beet? I looked like that. And my face is round anyway, hence the chins. But it was like, oh my gosh, it was comical. And I called my dermatologist. She's in Goulburn. And I was like, what is happening? She's like, unfortunately, you just got to wait it out. And it kind of happened luckily on the Friday night, my face had started to get puffy. By Saturday, I looked like Quasimodo, and even in my apartment, I had hats on, and it was like starting to get oozy and puffy and big. And on the Sunday, I booked into one of the walk-in clinics here in Canberra, and I remember walking down. It wasn't even that hot. It was in the beginning of the year. February, I think, this time last year actually, and I had on a turtleneck, collar, I had my big hat on, and I was scurrying, and I booked in at, I think, the earliest they opened, which was like 8 a.m. or even 7 a.m. I think. Thank goodness they were open really, really early. But they couldn't help me at all. They were like, if it's this, it's probably a reaction. We just had to put soothing creams on it. And I've also had rosacea in the past, which with the acne combined, it's just a whole thing. But I knew it was really bad, and that I looked quite scary when I rocked up to work on the breakfast show at the radio station on the Monday morning. And my beautiful friend Wilco, I can read him like a book. And I walked in and I had my hat on because I thought, maybe it's gone down. It's just me, and you always think, because I haven't seen anyone, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. And he just looked up at me and he went, oh, Sammy. And then we all burst into laughter because I told them, I was like, I look like a chipmunk. And they're like, you know what you do. And I had that morning and for the rest of that week, because it took quite a while to die down, I had my my oatmeal cream that was for my rosacea. And I let them film me. And I was lucky enough that they didn't mind with the socials. They would check and say, oh, we can cut you out and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And I was like, oh God, no. You've already mentioned it live on air to however many thousands are listening. You may as well pop up a little video of me. It doesn't matter. But I think the focus of all of this and what has taught me is that I remember why my friends and my family love me is not because of my beautiful skin or, I don't know, if you're dealing with body image and you've put on a bit of weight, when I've put on a bit of weight in the past and I've applied the same principle as what I apply to my acne, and it's easier said than done. I get that when you're in the depths and you get in your own head, but they don't love me for my skin. They love me for the fact that I'm silly and I'm willing to do whatever, or I can read the news well. Like, there are so many other things that make me who I am, which is not that. And that's what I focus on.
In life, we come across some challenging people, difficult people.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is challenging and difficult. You've mentioned a few people that have inspired you. You've mentioned a few people that have been there for you. You just mentioned walking into office, quote unquote, like a chipmunk. Yeah. And how Wilco played a role in calming things down, maybe bring some laughter in. How important is it to have people like that can be honest, open, candid with you in the most uplifting and exciting and happy ways?
It's so important, Avon. You've got to find your tribe. And I think if little Sammy knew when she was growing up in Goulburn, and I always had friends, I think I was one of those kids that was, without tooting my own horn, I was well liked, but I didn't always feel like I quite fit in because I was driven and a bit different. I didn't want to wear all the same clothes that everyone else was wearing, or I'd like to do things differently, or I didn't mind spending my lunchtimes in the library, like learning, and learning excited me. And I think if one of the best pieces of advice that I got from a dear friend was, you will find your tribe. And I'm so lucky and grateful that I have found my tribe. You know, you're a part of my tribe. It is these like-minded people who appreciate you and appreciate the things that you bring to the table and are also secure enough in themselves to lift you up. I've encountered a lot of people in my career, as I'm sure you have, in the careers that we are in media. It is a lot of dog eat dog out there. Like, you've got to look after yourself, and it can get quite competitive. And I've been so lucky to meet people within these industries that are secure enough in their own talent and what they can do, that they aren't threatened by someone who's coming up and also trying to succeed, and kind enough and generous enough with their time to bring them along, you know. And I think that having that support system, that network, that tribe, finding your tribe is so, so important. And to anyone who hasn't found their tribe yet, no matter how old you are, I remember thinking, even at, I really didn't start to find my tribe until my early 20s, mid-20s, when I was kind of confident to reach out to people that I thought were like-minded and who I admired, and kind of, latch onto them and reach out to mentors and all that kind of thing. And I definitely felt growing up, there was a period there, kind of my late teens, early 20s, I definitely didn't have a tribe. I had my couple of besties who I knew were my ride or dies that were there forever. But in terms of building that wider network of brilliant, generous people who I just click with, I wish I had a better way of explaining it, but that just get you and get it, that is invaluable.
Let's focus on your opportunity to be a mentor. I'm very keen to understand what the mentors you had taught you and how you value the opportunity to mentor somebody else.
I was very lucky that I had lots of mentors in the industry and even just in life. It probably sounds cliche, but I look at my mum and I think she's a mentor in the way that I would often run maybe issues that I was having at work past her and how she would deal with it, or I would think of how she would deal with it if something similar happened at the cafe or in the business. As I mentioned previously, Wilco Courts, Renee Bagatko, Amanda Whitley, Emma McDonald. I just, yeah, the mentors are endless, and I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. What they all taught me was there is such value in being generous with your time when you are at a point in your career where you are successful. And it's, for me, in terms of being a mentor, it's so fulfilling. It's such a lovely thing to be able to look at someone and say, to watch them grow, or even if it's something little. I still work in some capacity with the radio station on the sidelines for the Raiders games, the women's and the men's. And we have a beautiful intern who works with us, Ella, and watching her grow even just the tiniest little bit in confidence is so fulfilling and so lovely, because I've been in that situation, and as cheesy as it sounds, you do see yourself, a little bit of yourself in them, because I was exactly in that spot, and it was so helpful when people did that for me. And I think it is my responsibility to return the favour. If people were kind enough and generous enough with their time to do that for me, then I should be able to do that for them. And selfishly, you also learn from them. It's a two-way street. Whether it's, because they're younger, they're often much better at social media. They can teach you things, whether it's whatever's trending. But it might even just be a different outlook and a different way of doing things. And if they're willing to ask, even if it's in terms of something as simple as the process by which we do something. And I know that I've had instances like that in the newsroom. We have had, at the radio station when I was in there, we had some brilliant interns in there that eventually we snatched up because they were that good and I didn't want to let them go. And they taught me so much. And not so much necessarily about the work itself, but their approach to the work and their approach to their life and how work fits into that. Something that one of my dear friends, her name is Tia, and she started out as a casual journalist in the newsroom. She has this quiet confidence, and she's so young, but she seems so wise. And I think often I have been in a mentoring role for her, but there have definitely been times when I've looked at her and thought, I should be doing that, or I should be approaching life in that same way. She doesn't compromise on her values, and I wish I had been more like that at that age. Even sometimes now, I think I'm often too willing to please without stopping to think, hey, is this good for me? What do I get out of this? Whereas she leads with that. And I just think that's brilliant to have that confidence at such a young age. And that is something, that I will continue to work on, probably because it's just my personality is to be the people pleaser. But yeah, mentoring, two-way street. And hopefully they learn something from me and I learn something from them.
A woman in media who is successful gets to go to fancy, glamorous, glitzy events. You get to hang out with powerful, successful people. There is a power imbalance there. We spoke about the good people in the world. Not everyone's so good. How do you handle difficult situations where men can be the worst of themselves? And for a young journalist coming up, what are some of those words of wisdom you can offer?
Humour is brilliant. I always lean into the humour. It's cliche, but you do laugh or you cry. And the world is changing. It's changing slowly, but it is changing. And slowly, especially if you're a young woman in media, it won't, I hope that in 20 years' time, it's not as hard as it is for some women in media now. I hope that with all my heart. The advice that I would give to a young woman, as someone myself who has been in environments where it is an old boys club, Don't stand down. Trust your gut. And just because someone is older and has been in a workplace longer than you does not mean they deserve the job more. There are so many times where I should have advocated for myself because I did deserve a position, but a mate's mate got it, or the boss stood up for the young bloke because he saw himself in him, which was not necessarily a good thing most of the time. And I wish it was changing quicker. I really, really do. It has made me more thick-skinned, and I try not to focus on the little things that get to me. And often in terms of the old boys club, a lot of them are a product of their time. And I try to remember that. I don't think they're bad people necessarily. They aren't. They're just, they forget to check their privilege. And I encounter it a lot, especially in sports broadcasting as a young woman, and even the broadcasting at the women's sports in general. I mean, the recent stories in the news about the Triple M announcer with the Matildas, and the outrage that was expressed across the media was so refreshing, because it's that kind of ignorance, and it is ignorance. It's lazy and not educating yourself about what you are talking about. That, yeah, we do still encounter. I don't encounter it as much now, but I definitely encountered a lot in my radio career. And I wish I had a better way of some better advice. But I guess focus on you and the work that you are doing. And my dad always used to say to me, and he still says to me, don't let the wood ducks win. If you want something and you want it bad enough, don't let them stop you.
And I think a very, very useful reframe there is, while you will see certain men forgetting to check their privilege, you can go home and dad can go, no, the world isn't all like that. Don't let them win.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself. And I think that's the courage that young women need to have more of. Tell me about your journey with mental health. Tell me about your journey, your boldness to seek therapy. Because sometimes it's not always an easy option. It's much easier to go, it'll be all right. It's just a phase. Let me share with mom. It's okay. Mom gives great advice. Or I'm sitting and thinking, reflecting on myself, going, if I tell my mom I need a therapist, she's like, just sit and chat with me. What do you need? Let me make some tea for you and you'll be all right. Tell me about the realization, but also tell me about the step.
Mums do give great advice, and don't get me wrong, my regular phone calls with my mum are a bit therapeutic sometimes. I'd always been an angsty child. I think without sounding too arrogant, I think I have quite a high emotional intelligence. So I notice things in others, and I take a lot in. I always have. And in that sense, I've always been very detail-oriented in terms of how people are feeling around me. I notice the little things. And it wasn't until I always loved school. My last year of year 12, I went through a really, really rough time. There was just a group of girls. I annoyed the wrong girl in the wrong group. And my last few weeks, 6 weeks of school, which sounds like such a short amount of time when you think about it, but it was, when it's your whole world like that, it was really, really rough. And I went from wanting to go to school even when I was on death's doorstep with sickness throughout my whole schooling career to not wanting to go near the building. And it wasn't managed very well in the school. And I even remember I had mums calling me on behalf of their daughters, abusing me. It was awful. And I don't think I ever dealt with that properly. And so that was kind of always niggling at the back of my brain. And straight out of school, I went to uni and studied law. And that was kind of what you did if you were okay at school in a small town. Yeah, okay. If you got maths and science, go be a doctor. If you got English, writing, history, you go and be a lawyer. And so I went and did law, and I hated it. I did not fit in. I didn't fit in with the other people that were doing law. And I think looking back on it now, I think I was a bit burnt out because I had pushed myself. That crazy work ethic that I'd inherited from my mum, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. So I came back, and I didn't last a semester at uni doing law, and I worked with my mum and dad for a few years. And it was in those years, there was a few times that I remember saying to Mum, I was like, I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. I felt like I was behind in life because I hadn't gone to uni and I wasn't where I thought I would be. And it was kind of like you have this whole identity crisis about where I should be. And similar to women with their with fertility, it's like it's a same pressure on a timeline for when you get out of school. Like, how come you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life when you're 18? Like, how am I supposed to know? I don't even know who I am yet. Like, I'm 31 and I'm still figuring it out. And I remember my beautiful mum saying to me, sweetie, I don't think I can help you. And she suggested that I go and see a psychologist. And I remember her taking me, anyone who has tried or has seen a psychologist will, I hope, relate to this. Sometimes it takes a few goes because you just don't click. There was a couple of psychologists that I went to that Mum took me to, and I remember walking out and just looking at her and being like, no, like that didn't work.
You didn't like the couch?
Oh, the couch was okay. I mean, I could sit on the couch for hours. It was just the methods and whatever their particular approach to it, we just didn't click. And I found personally that I dealt or interacted better with a male psychologist. I learned that along the way. I'm very black and white in terms of, okay, give me practical solutions, which is wild because, you know, we're talking about emotions and everything, but I always found that a male psychologist, somehow I just leant more towards that. So yeah, I reached out. I did therapy kind of around my early 20s, and then I went back to a therapist, would have been after one of my breakups that was just a lot. And it was around the time that my acne flared up and my body was just crumbling. I didn't know what was happening. I was stressed all the time. I was achy. But I was also run for 30 kilometers on the weekend to keep my mind at bay and distract myself. And because my life had kind of just been turned on its head, wasn't where I thought I would be. And I had this idea of building this life with someone, and it just changed in an instant, you know. And unfortunately, it's just life. And I needed to speak to someone who had no interest in the matter whatsoever. And I could just kind of throw things at them and have them come back at me and be like, no, you're not, your feelings are valid. That's reasonable. You're not crazy. This is totally normal. And even just a space to vent, because I often feel like, as someone who is usually a pretty positive person, I try not to whinge too much, because I know, you know, we've all got that one person in the office, or whether it's in the family or whatever, who is the Debbie Downer, you know, a little bit negative. And I never want to be that person. So my therapist, it's a safe space where I can just unload, and they don't know who I'm talking about. And if they do, they're not allowed to tell anybody. It is this beautiful little nugget of just relief and getting the emotions out. And sometimes I feel much better after a good cry. And if they are a good psychologist and you've been with them for a while, then they often know your triggers and can show you what your triggers are and how to deal with that better. So yeah, I reached out a number of times throughout my life to get help, because if, you know, like my clots, I reached out to a doctor to get help with that. Why wouldn't I with my mental health?
And as somebody struggling with the decision of should I see a therapist or not? What are some of those markers that you can share to go, these are the points when I thought about it? Like, you were blessed to have good old Carol saying, let me take you, darling. This is what I can do. That's the open-mindedness she has. That's the level of care, support, and love she has for you. Not everyone's that fortunate. What are some of the markers that you went through that you went, this is the right time?
Looking back on when I had quite an intense breakup and I really wasn't feeling myself, I just hated myself. And there's always been an innate confidence there deep in me, ever since I was a kid. But my life was just turned on its head and I felt so silly and I was just, I didn't like myself. And I think, like you said, I was lucky enough early on that my mum had shown me and pointed out to me that it's okay to seek help. And so I still kind of had that attitude instilled in me. I think the point that I reached back out of my own accord was just when I recognised that I was really, really low. And there were days that I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't like myself. And, you sometimes have those really intrusive, awful thoughts. And at that point, I was like, nope, I am worth more and I do need help. And it is easier said than done. And as someone who has experienced that, I understand. But I started my initial therapist appointments during that time of my life just over the phone because I found it too overwhelming to go and sit in front of someone and talk to them about it because I would just be distraught for the next 2 days. And I was like, I can't afford to do that now. I still need to go to work and function as a human, and so if you go to your GP, you get your mental health plan, which we are so lucky to have as well. And I remember thinking to myself, I didn't want to spend the money. There are ways around that. Even in my workplace, all the workplaces I've been in, there is some kind of avenue for mental health help, whether it is psychologists, therapists, and even just taking that initial action of being like, I do need help. Oh my gosh, the relief. And that people get in touch with you and you get the process rolling, because then it even makes you feel like, oh, this is going to get better, and that action of reaching out and booking an appointment, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a Skype, Zoom, Teams chat, whatever it is, or it is in person and you go and sit on the couch, like that's a step that values your worth, because you are worth working on. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel that you want to be better for, because, life is this beautiful, big, brilliant thing. And why wouldn't you want to make the most of it and improve your mood so that you can live it to the full?
Tell me about the process of content creation for you. I have seen it evolving from beautiful writing to amazingly curated reels that are more than just the visual. You have a way of telling a story, and that's not just always the brand story. You have your beautiful way of telling so many stories. In a busy life with 2 children, I can tell you moments that I've seen you going and go, hey, I'm going to go to Kmart and try these things. It resonates because it's different. It's not just cookie cutter, but you're still getting a message across. How do you achieve that?
I just try to be me. I'm not doing anything that I don't enjoy, and that makes the content easy to create. I mean, yourself, if you're passionate about something and you're enjoying it as you're doing it, then it's easy to do because you're excited to do it and it takes less time. And I think making the content authentic, and I know I said that earlier, but I think that's the name of the game in anything that you do. If you are doing something that you love and you are passionate about, then it is going to probably turn out a bit better than doing something. It's like assignments at school. Like we all had the subjects that we hated. For me, it was science and I was hopeless. But those subjects I never did as well in because I didn't enjoy it and I didn't enjoy the projects and the homework that we had to do in it. I think it's the same with life. Like work, we all have these tasks that we love and then the ones that we don't so much love. And the ones that you love, sometimes even in a work capacity, I save those as like little treats at the end of the day. We call it in our office a brain break. So if you're going to write an article about, I don't know, whatever fantastic thing is happening in Canberra this weekend, then I will save that till the end of the day because it's like a bit of sugar for my brain. But with the content, I think, doing what you enjoy, I think that shines through when you create the content.
It doesn't feel like you're trying to sell something to someone. Although sometimes that is the intention, is to create awareness. And I'm thinking of you walking in again. It's not sponsored by Kmart. And
I just
sponsored walking into Kmart and saying, hey, I'm going to try these outfits. And I remember it so well. And I go through lots of reels. I engage with lots of content. But I remember this very clearly. You're trying out different tops and you say, oh, I always like jeans. And then you're trying the jeans and go, hey guys, look at my butt. And I'm like, wait, what? It's authentic. It's you. What does a brand need to understand better when they're working with a content creator? Because I think brands can be sometimes extremely prescriptive and limit their potential.
I think you need to work with people who love the brand as much as you do. Again, this is not as sponsored by Kmart, but I live alone at the moment. I'm paying a mortgage by myself. So Kmart, as a fashion girly on a budget, is very accessible. So it's easy for me to create content from that because I really enjoy it. And I know that there are other women out there and men who are in the same boat. And in terms of brands appreciating, I guess, who their target audience is when they are promoting through socials, I think that's a huge aspect of it. And also you want to pick people who actually believe in the product. I know that I've had brands reach out to me before and they've been beautiful clothes, but I can't afford them. And so if I wear them, I feel like I'm endorsing that I can afford this. And as much as I want to say, gosh, yes, send me the dress, I will do a reel with that dress on. I know that if in another life, or if one of my friends or sisters was watching that, who are kind of in a similar situation to me with money and cosy lives at the moment, it's the second word in every news story, that's not relatable. Like, I want something that actually helps me. And I think to rabbit on a bit about content in general, not necessarily just digital media or social media, but more so like radio, print, all those things. Something that I learned very early on is why are you doing this and what is the listener or audience getting out of it? So for me, I tend to think that with whatever I post, why am I posting this? And sure, I might, love looking back at myself in a cute fit, which granted is sometimes the reason I post something because I'm like, oh, I look great. But there will be other girlies out there who look at that outfit and go, oh my gosh, I want to recreate that. Where can I get it? Click the links, the tags, whatever. And it is useful for them. There is a practical background edge to it. And I think brands often forget that you need to align with a content creator, influencer, whoever is the face of your brand in whatever level or sphere, that you want them to align so well with the brand because they would actually use it in their everyday life.
To aspiring creators that look at your account, that go into your reels and that look at engagement and go, I can't get there. The market is saturated, is what I've been told. When I post something on Instagram, 6 people watched it. Grandma, my mom, and 2 of grandma's friends. How do you start today? If it was you restarting, let's make it really simple, your Instagram account today, how would you do that?
I don't think I'd do anything too different from what I'm doing now. I may create more content if I was really driven to grow my audience, but I think I would stick to the same niche. I think I would focus more on creating content that relates to me and relates to the people that I'm trying to target who are similar to me. My for want of a better word, but my tribe on Instagram in that digital sphere. I would, continue posting about that fits from Kmart or BW or Target, that if you're a fashion girly and you want to stay on trend or you want to just make yourself feel nice with a new outfit and not, that doesn't cost a limb, then you can do that and it's inspiration for that. If you are starting out brand new, say on Instagram, just start doing it. And the only way, like any job in any industry, the only way that you are going to learn is by making mistakes and having a go. Unfortunately, it's just a time thing as well. And it's so funny, looking back, the reels that have done better than others, so often they're the ones that I didn't put a lot of thought into, or that have just become, they were created so organically that it was easy. It was so easy. Whereas some of the others that I've put hours, ahead thinking about, I'll put my red lippy with the red shoe and we'll do it in this background and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Like, it didn't matter and it didn't make a difference. There is an element of luck there in terms of, what song is trending and what hashtags you're using and all that kind of thing. But you're not in it unless you're doing it. So, start doing it and just, again, do you and create content that you would love and you would enjoy, because chances are there are thousands of other people out there who agree with you and have the same interests.
I love to delve a little deeper into do you. People get inspired by lots of other people. Fortunately or unfortunately, they start turning inspiration into copying or trying to be more like that person. How have you been inspired by people, but how do you still let your personality, the good of it, the little quirks, the little Sammyisms come out?
Oh, golly. I definitely get inspired by fashion and fashionistas online. That is something that I have had my whole life, that, when I was little I had scrapbooks. If Mum had a few extra dollars at Woolies, she would, treat me to a Vogue magazine, and I think it's a bit more expensive than what it was. But I've always been inspired by visual mediums. And Iris Apfel, I don't know if you remember Iris Apfel, but yes, fabulous with the glasses. Oh, divine. She was always my spirit animal. And Blair Waldorf from the Gossip Girl series, that is my other inspiration. But in terms of keeping that inspiration and still making the content and my outfits and everything I do in my life feel like me, it's very simplistic, but I just go with my gut. Because there's so often times that, particularly with clothes, that I will try something on. A prime example recently is low-rise jeans are back. No way in hell am I ever wearing low-rise jeans again in my life. I tried to when I was 12. I've got too much of a booty and boobs and everything else going on to ever make that work. And I just know that that's not me. I continued to wear ballet flats even when they were out of style, and they've come back into style, which I'm very, very happy about. But I think just going with your gut and whatever makes you feel comfortable is a way of kind of being inspired and taking what you want from other people and other inspirations, whether it is, your favorite TV series like Gossip Girl or the runways and street style shots that you see from Paris and Milan and In Vogue. But remembering that, like, they've all got their own unique style and that there is something really special about you having your own unique style because there is only one of you.
Inspirations come from all angles. I've heard you and seen you writing about your nan. Tell me what characteristics or values that nan had that really inspire you.
Dulcie Rose was fabulous. She was, so on my dad's side, my dad's mum, and she had 5 boys. And often I would hear stories. She would look after the boys when my grandfather was in the Navy in World War II, and, you know, he'd be away for months and months and months. And somehow she would wrangle these 5 boisterous young men and look after them, make sure they were, you know, fed and bathed, and I'm sure they were feral. I can imagine my dad being quite feral. And the main things that I took from her growing up, she always had an impeccable sense of style. She was kind of from that generation that you leave the house or even at home, you're in your Sunday best. And I think that's a thing that is lost. And I sometimes wish I was more like that, and something that hadn't been lost so much. She always had on a great pair of slacks. She was always a pants lady, and great shoes, and always ironed so crisply, you know, that beautiful, like the lines down your pants, and shirts. She had a brilliant shirt collection. And I think that's kind of where I get a lot of my style from, looking back. And I do like to think that I've got a little bit of her style in me and her taste, which is really, really nice. She was also just a very positive lady, and she had a way of making serious, awkward situations quite funny. And I remember one night in particular, she was babysitting my sisters and I, and there was 4 of us, and I'm the second eldest. So I was one of the forgotten middle children. That's what we were always kind of, that was my tagline. And she was babysitting us on a night. My mum and dad were at my uncle's wedding, someone's wedding. And my younger sisters and I, particularly my fellow middle child and myself, we would fight like cats and dogs. We were awful. Adore them now, we're best friends. But then, I did not want anything to do with her. And we were fighting, and I remember, I don't remember what we were fighting about. All I remember is my nan, Dulcie, coming in on a broom, like whisking into the room, and she would have been like 70, and pretending that she was the Wicked Witch of the West, and she was throwing things at us. And it's just a prime example of, all I remember from that night is laughing so hard that I cried. And she always had a way of making me feel special, that I think sometimes if you have a lot of siblings, and you sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, and it's almost like you have this real instinct to make yourself feel known and a bit different and seen. Sometimes you want to feel seen, and Nan always made me feel seen. And she also harbored within me, she really encouraged my love of reading. That was something that from a young age she noticed, and she'd always buy me the most beautiful books, and I've still got a lot of them. And yeah, I think her generosity, her positivity, and her fabulous sense of style, they're the things that I think of when I think of my beautiful Nan.
A hardworking, capable person like yourself, how do you define success?
I used to define success as getting to career goals, you know, whether it's a promotion or getting that big position or job or whatever. Now, I'm going to sound so old and fuddy-duddy. I think it's just being happy, and it sounds very lame and simple, but being happy with your work life, your personal life, and being able to find the joy in whatever you're doing and whatever stage of life you're in. I think being successful is more of a state of mind. I think you can be in so many different stages of your life or in so many situations, and you define your own success, you know. And over the years, I've learned that my success, I have to learn to define it myself and not let other people's thoughts and feelings about where I should be succeeding or how I should be succeeding determine how I feel about my achievements and what I achieve. Because there's certain things that I achieve that other people might look at and be like, oh, that's not really, you know, that's not a big deal. But for me, it is. I think success is very subjective, and what the last few years have taught me in particular is that it's not necessarily defined by work. And I love my work. I've always been a bit of a workaholic. I still am. But there's so much more to life than that. And if you are lucky enough to have a job that you love doing and you're happy at, then that in turn helps the success. But yeah, in a nutshell, I think if you are happy and you are able to see the beautiful things in life, and you have a beautiful family or friends, no matter what shape that is, then that, yeah, you must be pretty successful.
For a young person in media or someone else that wants to reach you, where can people reach you? Where can people find Sammy?
Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. I really like the pretty pictures and I'm constantly scrolling on there. So at Sammy D. Rose.
Sammy, thank you for your time. Thank you for being the person that you are. I've known you for close to a decade, and I've seen you in so many different settings be really humble, be really joyful, and inspire and be kind to so many people. Thank you for bringing out the best in me always when we catch up. I appreciate it.
Ditto, Avon. I just adore you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. A massive thank you to Crown Plaza Canberra for hosting this episode of the podcast. If you are looking for really nice accommodation in close proximity to Canberra CBD, or if you want well-appointed meeting spaces, check out Crown Plaza Canberra. Thank you again.